I think it's safe to say that finding a really good horror movie that you can watch for free is really difficult. It seems that every single streaming service is charging us more and more and, giving us fewer horror films. But Tubi has quietly built one of the best horror libraries anywhere. And there are some completely incredible and some of my favorite horror movies just sitting on Tubi absolutely for free. Now, some people either just don't know they exist or skip past these films because they look cheap, but newsflash, some of the best things in life are cheap. And while there are some bigger name horror movies on there like The Taking of Deborah Logan or House of a Thousand Corpses and even Would You Rather, there's a bunch of seriously hidden gems hidden within the depths of Tubi. Some are classics, some are modern masterpieces, and others will completely ruin your day. So my name's Ricky, I love horror movies, and here are 9 horror movie hidden gems you can watch for free on Tubi. So first up we have Frogman. Yes, this movie has a terrible name, but I think that's why people don't watch it. And those of us who knew that this movie was coming out did not expect it to be anywhere near as good as it actually is. It sounds like the same type of movie that you would find in a bargain bin next to a film called Shark Exorcist or, Killer Sofa. Those are 2 actual real movies. But Frogman is actually kind of brilliant. It's inspired by the real Loveland frog cryptid. So the film centers around a filmmaker who returns to the town where he supposedly captured, footage of the cryptid when he was a kid. And he hopes to finally prove that this thing actually exists. And what starts out as this, documentary quickly turns into something much darker. It is a found footage creature feature that never turns the monster into an actual joke. The film leans into things like local folklore, conspiracy theories, and this obsession that people get when trying to prove the impossible. The found footage feels natural, the creature design is really good, and the ending just embraces chaos. It's weird, it's funny, it's scary, and somehow nobody watches it. And it truly makes you believe that a giant monster humanoid frog isn't the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Next up we have Black Christmas. This is genuinely my favorite slasher movie of all time. And if, like me, you're quite scared of people randomly calling you out of the blue, this is a film that will terrify you. Low-key, every single time my phone rings and I don't know who it is, I fall apart. So this is a festive horror movie. It's a Christmas horror movie. The movie centers around the residents of a sorority house who are getting ready for the festive season when they become harassed by these really obscene phone calls. And low-key, these are some of the most disturbing phone calls you'll hear in any horror film. And if you've never seen this horror movie or heard these phone calls, you are in for an experience. Now, what makes Black Christmas so important is how much of the slasher rulebook it wrote before Halloween even came out. The unseen killer, the POV shots, the isolated house, and the final girl. It's restrained, it's psychological, and it's even held up. It's still a creepy film. Honestly, I keep coming back to these phone calls, but damn, these phone calls are creepy. And if you don't find them creepy, there's something wrong with you, bruv. You need to get your brain checked. Next up, we have Sorgoi Prakov, My Descent into Darkness, My European Nightmare. That is a mouthful. Now, this isn't a horror movie that I recommend lightly because it is that disturbing. The premise to this film is simple. A European journalist is traveling across Europe and documenting his travels, but gradually his grip on reality vanishes. Now imagine the movie Creep, the movie Man Bites Dog, and Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer got together, had a few lagers, decided to hop into bed with each other and weren't being very safe. This would be the love child of that encounter. Now, unlike a lot of other found footage horror movies, this movie is horrifying not because of jump scares. It's horrifying because we are watching somebody completely and psychologically collapse. This entire film is a case study on identity, isolation, loneliness, and, undiagnosed mental illness. It is an incredibly realistic film, and because of that, it's difficult to watch the violence in this film because it feels so believable. And if you're not that well, versed in particularly disturbing horror films, there will be numerous moments in this film that will make you consider turning it off. But if you're looking for something brutal, this is about as brutal as found footage gets. Next up, we have I See You. So I genuinely don't understand why more people don't talk about this film, or why people stop talking about this film, because this film was quite popular when it first released, but not so much anymore. So the movie centers around the disappearance of a 12-year-old boy at a local park and a detective who's investigating this disappearance in an attempt to try and, give the family answers. Now, without giving too much away, this synopsis really does not define what this film actually is. You think you know what's going on, but you don't, because this movie has twist after twist after twist. But it's a really clever film, Every single twist isn't there to just shock you. It genuinely changes the way you watch this film and, understand things that you've already watched. It's like rewatching the same movie halfway through, but from a completely different perspective. But underneath all the thriller elements of this film, it really is a film about grief, about guilt, and, just the hidden darkness within seemingly normal suburban American homes. If you're into horror movies with twists, or horror movies that make you rethink everything you've seen in previous scenes, this is a movie you're going to want to check out. Next up, we have Audition. So Audition is one of those films that has achieved almost mythical status. So the movie centers around a widower who has staged these fake film auditions in an attempt to find his new wife. That is incredibly sus, bruv, because that's how any healthy relationship starts, right? But through this incredibly problematic way to meet a lady, he meets a woman, and everything changes. And rightfully so. For almost an hour, this movie feels like a melancholy romantic drama. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this movie turns into one of the most savage horror movies ever made. The violence in this film isn't constant, but when it arrives, it is absolutely horrifying. So for me, I feel like this movie weaponizes patience, right? The entire film, you're lulled into this false sense of security that you're watching, something quite tame, without realizing that you are actually trapped in an entirely different type of film. But underneath all the violence and the savagery, I think that this is a genius film about misogyny, about objectification, and the, grotesque power imbalance between men and women. It's disturbing, it's heartbreaking, and it is 100% earned its reputation. I will defend this movie forever, because I genuinely believe that this is one of the most underrated found footage horror movies ever made. This is Butterfly Kisses. The movie follows a filmmaker who has found a box full of videotapes, and these videotapes contain a really disturbing film project by these two students. Two students who were filming a film project centering around this local legend called the Peeping Tom. And this filmmaker, sets out to prove that this footage is real. So this is basically a found footage horror movie about found footage. It's a film about obsession and, artistic ambition. And it's about, whether proving something is real is worth, your own life falling apart. Newsflash, bruv. It is not. So not only is the mythology behind this film fantastic, this is a genuinely scary found footage horror movie. It's a smart movie as well. It asks really interesting questions about, why audiences demand proof of the supernatural, but also deny that proof when they finally get it. If you're a huge fan of found footage horror movies and you've not seen Butterfly Kisses, stop what you're doing right now, go watch it. On Tubi. It's free. Next up, we have #MissingCouple. So the title to this horror movie isn't as bad as Frogman, but it's still not great, and I think that's why a lot of people scroll past this film. But don't skip past it, because this one caught me completely off guard. So this movie centers around one of those really insufferable social media couples who move to this abandoned farmhouse in an attempt to renovate it whilst documenting every aspect of this renovation. So for me, the whole vlogger horror thing is kind of a new offshoot of found footage, and this movie does it in a way that feels painfully realistic. So at first, this movie does kind of play out like another vlogger horror or influencer horror movie, but then something happens that changes everything. So like a lot of modern horror movies or horror movies that center around like internet personalities, this really is a movie critiquing like internet culture. It really delves into, you know, the idea of parasocial relationships and this obsession with turning every single aspect of your life into content. It manages to be really creepy whilst also being darkly funny, but then it just gets dark. I highly recommend this one. Next up, we have The House of the Devil. Now, if you miss old horror movies or you'll just love that old horror aesthetic, this is a film you need to watch immediately. So the film centers around a student who takes a babysitting job in this mysterious, isolated mansion. But naturally, because this is a horror movie, everything isn't what it seems. So this is a modern horror film that genuinely feels like it's a, you know, forgotten or unseen horror film from like the early 80s. Everything from the lighting, the music, the camera movements, you know, the pacing, it all feels classically horror. The movie refuses to rush anything, and it lets tension build naturally until the point that every single sound in this house, every single creaking floorboard feels terrifying. It's a love letter to slow burn horror movies from like the late 70s and early 80s, one that proves that horror isn't just about jump scares, and it trusts us to get scared by atmosphere and atmosphere alone. There are some really shocking scenes in this film as well, scenes that completely took me off guard. But like I said, if you love classic horror movies and you haven't checked this one out, go watch it. And finally, we have The Blackwell Ghost. So this movie is the definition of simple done really well. The movie centers around a filmmaker who is trying to prove that ghosts don't exist. Naturally, nothing goes according to plan. So what makes this movie work so well for me is it's not trying to reinvent found footage, it just nails found footage. It really executes the basics expertly. We have really natural performances and realistic dialogue and really patient scares. And for a horror movie that is centering around a haunted location, essentially, it feels incredibly grounded. Another thing that I really love about this is it's short. It's under an hour long, and it gives it this kind of like relentless feeling that doesn't give you enough time to like take a breather. So for a film that is actually quite slow in building its like atmosphere and its scares, it still manages to feel really relentless. This is the first entry into a franchise of many films. Now the first one and the second one are, you know, the best films in the franchise, and for me they get a bit worse as they go on, but man, this first film is not only just really well done, it's also really creepy and very scary. Now I say this all the time, as a horror fan, I absolutely love finding underrated hidden gems that nobody's talking about, and we're living in a world now where we don't often get things for free. So when a streaming platform comes along like Tubi that has really good underrated hidden gems on it, you should be there watching them. Subscriptions keep going up. They keep blackmailing you to paying more and more, and if you don't, they just slap ads on everything. I don't think it's right for us to have been paying a subscription to the likes of Netflix or Prime for, 5 to 10 years plus, for them to then turn around and say, unless you start to pay us more, we're going to start showing you adverts. That's not right. And while you do get some adverts on Tubi films, they're straight up about it. They tell you that that's what's going to happen if you want to watch these films for free. They don't rope you in with a subscription and then try and bait more out of you. Now, let me be clear. This video is not a Tubi promotion. I just think there's some really good hidden gems on Tubi, and you can watch them for free. So if you're looking for something genuinely creepy, good, underrated to watch this week, stop scrolling Netflix for 45 minutes and pick one of these films. Have you seen any of these films? Let me know in the comments below. And if you know of any other horror movie hidden gems on Tubi, let me know. If you like this type of content, consider hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow. We managed to surpass our 5,000 goal by the end of this month. Let's try to get to 6,000 followers. But for us to do that, you need to hit the subscribe button. So if you're watching this and you enjoyed the content, consider hitting the subscribe button. Slap that What the was that? Sometimes I really, really hate myself. But you can also find me on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, where I upload videos every single day with thousands of recommendations on these socials. So if you're ever stuck for what to watch, head over there. You'll find something. But for the meantime, thanks for watching. Be nice to yourself. Be nice to other people. I'll see you next time. Bye.